In the future, the most successful sports teams will be owned by their fans.
In Germany, there's a rule, the 50+1 rule, where 51% of the club needs to be owned by the fans.
And so you can sort of create like a self-reinforcing economy with these crypto assets.
Recently, the Deloitte Money Football League report was launched, and Real Madrid is a football club that is making more revenue.
Yeah, the Gameday Packers, which are one of the most valuable NFL teams, is very similar setup to Real Madrid. We've actually probably never seen the best F1 drivers because they probably never drove a car.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Gameday. Today I'm here in London with Peter. Peter,
nice to meet you. Thank
you for making the time. It's really a pleasure to be here at Gameday. We try to tell the game behind the game. We try to give people a view of the sport industry and the business behind sports, and we do that with many executives from different backgrounds. And I'm very excited to be here today. And talk about the possibilities of blockchain technology and crypto in general for the sport industry. But before getting into the topics that we will discuss, it will be great if you can introduce yourself and tell our viewers how you got here, how you built blockchain.com, and a little bit your journey till now.
Sure. So, and thanks for having me on the podcast. We're very lucky to get a sunny day in London, which is exciting.
That's right.
But so blockchain.com started as an open source software project. So there were three of us that were really interested in Bitcoin because there was only Bitcoin at the time. And so we were building sort of tools to make Bitcoin more useful. And so, blockchain has always been a company that responded to consumer demand. And then later to institutional demand, and then later to enterprise demand. And so what I mean by that is we were building solutions for folks in the Bitcoin space, and then later the digital asset space as a whole. The company, rather than an open source software project, but a company, got started in about 2013. We raised our first venture capital in 2014, so about 12 years ago now. So well as the end of 2014, so 11 years. And it's been a really incredible journey since then. Today we run one of the largest consumer businesses in the industry, about 40 million verified users. We run one of the largest institutional businesses in the space. We have about 2,000 clients around the world. Wow. And then we run a large infrastructure business. We're sort of one of the largest stakers, one of the largest liquidity providers is to exchanges globally, as one of the largest validators in the world as well. And so we're really a key sort of piece of the backbone of the industry, from both a consumer perspective as well as an enterprise perspective. And one of the things I like to tell people is, even if you don't have an account with us, which I suppose 20% of all crypto accounts are with us, but if you're not part of that 20%, you almost certainly have traded with us at some point, because we are usually the liquidity or processing behind about half of the space. And so, what does that mean from a sort of practical perspective? It means a lot of volume. I think in the last 2 or 3 years, we've done about 1.5 trillion of transactional volume.
Wow!
And so, every day there's a lot of bits and atoms floating through our systems, and our mission is to help keep crypto running and keep it running smoothly.
That's incredible numbers, and congratulations on such a incredible journey. And I think you're one of the biggest experts that we have in blockchain and in crypto in general. In sports, relationship with the crypto world it has a lot of ups and downs. Mm-hmm. We had the early 2020 where everything exploded, especially after COVID with NFTs. And you have many projects like, socials with the fan tokens, NFTs, as I said before, companies like Draper Labs that are doing very interesting things using blockchain. But there was a time where I felt that every company was using blockchain where to make them look cool, but the product was not really using the blockchain technology in an effective way. I'm curious to get your view on how do you think blockchain technology in crypto can help the sport industry, changing a little bit the way we interact with fans or find alternative revenue models?
Well, I think one of the challenges in emerging technology generally is that the first uses of it are usually fad driven. So, if you go back to the original, to the internet, actually, the first uses of the internet were very fad driven. What I mean by that is people didn't move business communication online. That wasn't the first form of online community. That wasn't how the internet was used for communication. It was used ICQ, which I'm becoming old now. But ICQ was these servers where you basically just hopped on and chatted about random stuff with random people. And so that technology eventually, and it took almost 20 years, became Slack. And then, of course, Microsoft Teams copied Slack, right? But it took 20 years for sort of chat communication on the internet, starting at ICQ, to eventually become serious business communication. And now I think probably most tech companies and almost every company in the world runs on some combination of Microsoft Teams and Slack. But that took 20 years, right? And so usually in technology, the first application of something is very much a fad. And I think you saw that in that wave you're talking about in 2020 in sports. Now, what do I think will happen when it moves from sort of fad and gimmick to real? I actually think that in the future, the most successful sports teams will be owned by their fans. Today, most sports teams are owned by families, or increasingly there's more private equity. I think you're going to see an arc where a lot of the families sell to private equity. The private equity messes them up, as they do most things. And then those private equity teams, will eventually end up in the hands of their fan base. The best way to do that is to honestly put that on a public protocol, on a blockchain, and have a native digital sort of internet asset. Why? Because one, you can incentivize certain behavior. So you can distribute ownership to particularly dedicated fans. You can pay fans for working in the stadiums. As you probably know, one of the biggest challenges to a football stadium, NFL or football here in Europe, is the fact that you need a huge amount of employees, 15 to 20 days a year, right? That's a difficult thing to do. If you had everybody own part of the team, you could pay them in the sort of currency of the team itself to be working at the stadium. Right? And so you can sort of create a self-reinforcing economy with these crypto assets. And I think eventually people will apply those to teams. And you can even extend that even further and think about players, which is the number one cost of sports teams. If you were paying players in all or part of a token that was attached to the value of the sports team, every player on the team would be incentivized to make that team more valuable. And I think, look, you can have very valuable teams that don't win. It's very difficult. For the most part, the teams that win are the most valuable ones.
Yeah.
Right. And so in the long term, at least. And so I think that, using these sort of digital assets, you can sort of decentralize the ownership and brand value. You can basically bring your whole fan base, your employee base, your players into the process of making the equity of the team valuable. And when you have everybody sort of rowing in the same direction and economically incentivized to make something valuable, it's a lot easier to make it valuable. And so I think you'll see, a couple of teams do this kind of out of desperation. And then it will really start working and teams will almost have to do it to compete.
I think this is a very interesting view because when you look at the US market, as you said, most of the teams are owned by big families or wealthy individuals or private equities. But when you come into Europe, the ownership of the team is completely different. Yes, you have more and more US private equity, especially investing into Europe, and in the UK, you have many examples with Liverpool with the family group, or Manchester United owned by the Glazers. In Italy now, there's a lot of investment from US firm with many private equities that own AC Milan, Inter, and some of the big teams. But there are very interesting examples, like, for example, in Germany, there's a rule that no private owner can own more than 50% of a club. The 50 is the 50 plus 1 rule, where 51% of the club needs to be owned by the fans. Mm-hmm. And in Spain, I'm a Real Madrid fan, and Real Madrid doesn't have an owner. It has 80,000 members that own one share, and every 4 years you run for elections, and it's a very political thing. And you have that in Real Madrid, you have that in Barcelona, you have in many football clubs that are actually owned by the fans, but the fans in reality are not participating on the economic incentives of
because so basically
club.
you do have sort of fan ownership. You have I wouldn't say fan ownership in Europe, and it's specific to Germany and Spain, right? Because anywhere where there's not a rule, that's long gone away. What you have is not so much fan ownership, but fan collectives. So, for example, in Real Madrid, you can't really buy and sell the shares, from my understanding.
No.
Like the shares do not freely trade.
No.
No, you have actually, if you want to become a member, you have there's a waiting list.
It's a fixed thing.
It's a fixed thing.
Yeah, and so the problem with that is everyone's not experiencing the collective upside of Real Madrid's success. And so, you don't have and this is why the elections are a disaster in Real Madrid and Barcelona as well. But it's
other than the clout of saying that you're involved, there's absolutely no reason to try to improve Real Madrid as a Real Madrid fan or quote shareholder, because they're not really shares. It's like some collective scheme. And I think what we've seen historically is that collectives, and which is sort of a communist concept, are not very good at increasing the value of an asset. And so you sort of have two opposite poles inside European sports right now and in America. You have families, private equity, and then these collectives. And by the way, we have a collective in America as well. I don't know if you know this. The Green Bay Packers.
Oh, really?
Which are one of the most valuable NFL teams. Is a very similar setup to Real Madrid.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
It's owned by the fans.
But not really owned.
Yeah.
It's not equity. It's, more of a membership.
Yeah.
Which is also why the Green Bay Packers play in sub-freezing temperatures in an open-air stadium. Because they have never been able to raise the investment to build a roof. Interesting. Mm-hmm.
Well, in Real Madrid, the case is that we had for many years a president that was a very strong businessman, and he has driven the value of the club forward in terms of, you can argue his policy many things, but in terms of economic valuation and how he's been managing the club from a financial perspective, there's nothing you can tell, because at the moment is the most recently the Deloitte Money Football League report was launched, and Real Madrid is the football club that is making more revenue.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting what you are saying about the ownership and how blockchain can enable a more effective ownership of the club to the models that we have in Europe.
You can generally think of these crypto protocols and networks as orchestration. It's collective economic orchestration. And what I mean by that is, one of the big challenges in human life is how do we get a bunch of people to cooperate towards one common goal?
Yeah.
Right. And a crypto network enables people to do that, one, very efficiently, and two, with very little trust of each other. And the efficiency was super important because, I don't know how many fans Real Madrid has now, but I remember reading somewhere that at one point that Manchester United had over 200 million fans.
Yeah.
Right. If you think about if Real Madrid probably is something like that, probably 150, 200 million fans, right?
Yeah.
But there's only 80,000 collective memberships, right?
Yeah.
One of the coolest things they could do is make the 200 million fans owners of Real Madrid. But how would you administer having 200 million members or owners rather than 80,000? It'd be really difficult. Unless you used a crypto protocol or a blockchain where you could sort of automate all of this at a smart contract level.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be difficult at all.
And it's interesting because I started actually my career at Real Madrid when I finished my university. It was my first work experience. And it's incredible how important, so if you think about Real Madrid, it's a global brand. But when you think about their communication and the way they do things, it's incredible how influenced they are about the local press. Because at the end of the day,
80,000
the president needs to make these 80,000 people, 80,000 fans happier than anyone else, because they are the ones that vote every 4 years and then make sure that...
but they're probably not the ones that drive the economic success of the club.
No, probably not. Yeah, because now marketing. So for sure, Fly Emirates is not paying millions just to talk to these 80,000 fans. And talking about sponsorship, you have a really successful partnership with the Dallas Cowboys. I love to understand talking more from the brand's perspective. When you approach sports, what is the things that you're looking for as a brand? What is the impact that sponsoring a sport club like the Cowboys, one of the biggest franchises in the world, brings to blockchain.com?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things you're looking at. There's like tangible and intangible value. On the tangible value front, like you're looking to buy the most amount of impressions for the least amount of dollars. So one of the reasons that, folks want to prioritize, like want to chase after like a Cowboy sponsorship, and it was very competitive at the time actually, is that they play on Thanksgiving and Christmas on national TV in America at home. So if you're a stadium sponsor of the Cowboys, you know that you're going on national TV regardless of how good they are twice a year. And they're always pretty good. Yeah, like, that's the other thing. You don't want to sponsor a team that's like bad. You want to sponsor a team that's consistently above average. And they are. You also like know that they're going to play on national TV twice. They also have the most fans of any NFL franchise. So they have, I think it's like by an order of 3 times. Why? Texas is big. And they have a lot of fans in Mexico. So it's just kind of like, that's how it broke down. But they're going to get featured more on Red Zone, which is kind of a strange concept to people in Europe. But ESPN, the main sports show in America, has this show called Red Zone, where they just show people going into the end zone, scores. And so, the Cowboys are always, because they have the most fan, all of their scores are going to, recaps are going to make it there. So you're going to get more views. So if you look at how many views, like, how many times is the Tampa Bay or Jacksonville Jaguars or, the Bears going to go on national television versus the Cowboys, it's a huge, huge gap. So that's sort of like quantifiable. And then there's just sort of like intangibles. You as a brand want to be associated with, another premier brand, tier 1 to tier 1. So, like with Emirates, right, in Real Madrid, like, Emirates is a tier 1 airline. They want to be with a tier 1 football team. Yeah. Very similar to us, like we were a tier 1 company, want to be with a tier 1 football team. And so and in this case, the Cowboys are the biggest team. If we went out and we sponsored, say like a random club from, a random part of France or a random part of Italy, everybody would be like, whoa, like, why? Like they'd be like, is Peter from there? Like this local team? And I would have loved.
I think you'd be surprised how many times the sponsorship decision in sport, especially, comes from this.
No, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all because people sponsor the F1, and the only reason to sponsor the F1 is if you're a massive fan of the F1 because the numbers never work. And I'm a huge F1 fan. Yeah, and so I would have loved for the numbers to work for the F1, but the F1 like quantifiably doesn't work. And so that's I know exactly how much money is spent because people are fans of something. Yeah, it's called every sponsorship at the F1. But yeah, it's for us it was a very it was a quantifiable thing, and then also an intangible thing as well. And it was partly driven by the fact that we historically have a big and embedded user base in Europe and the UK, and we wanted to expand into the US, and so we did that partnership right at the beginning of our expansion to the US.
Okay, so it was a key component of your growth strategy into the US. That was the main goal when you were thinking about the. Correct. About the sponsorship. And
you have to line those things up, right? You have to look at it has to all match up to be successful. Yeah. I think the other thing and the last thing I would say is, when people talk to me about doing sports sponsorships and what would I look for or optimize around, you're going to end up spending a lot of time there. Clients want to go there. Investors want to go there. You're going to end up spending a lot of time in that stadium. You really should pick a sponsor that you actually enjoy seeing. And I don't just mean the game. I mean, that you enjoy seeing the GM, that you enjoy seeing this, CEO or president of Real Madrid. In this case, I have a really good relationship with the Jones family. I, have a lot of respect for Jerry and Steven as entrepreneurs. And it's a joy to go see them and to be in Dallas. And they have really a phenomenal hosting ability. They are, and there's something I would say about them that's fairly unique. They're always amazing at helping us host people at the games, staying in touch, really being phenomenal partners. And you're going to spend so much time there that you really got to pick a place that you're happy about going and a team to work with that you're happy about doing things together. Because, it's people talk about sports sponsorships, and I really think that they're more like sports partnerships. Like you are sending them money, but you're trying to achieve a common objective together.
Yeah.
And you got to really like your partners, or it's going to be a long deal.
And sometimes it's as you said, it's very, very long. I think with sports, you have this unique thing that unifies people. Like nothing brings people together like sport does.
Mm.
And you always are happy to enjoy that sense of human achievement. And that's why I think sports will not be, it's one of the few entertainment industries that is not going to be disrupted by AI or other types of entertainment, because
I think it'll be disrupted.
But not completely, what I mean, completely substitute. So I cannot imagine a world where AI robots playing American football would be more interesting than actual people playing football. And even in I always say this, in sports like F1, where technology plays a key role and AI is obviously changing the way things are working, you still have one person driving the car. I don't think autonomous self-driving car will be more interesting than cars driven by people.
No, I would agree with that. I think that the athletes will be more important than ever.
Yeah.
I think it'll be easier to become an athlete than ever. Because, for example, there's probably been 10,000 better F1 drivers born and died than the best F1 drivers that we've seen drive. The reason is that like becoming an amazing F1 driver is like it's basically an accident of the lottery.
Yeah,
you have to have the aptitude, but you also have to be born into a family or a place where you can go through the academies, right? And so there's probably been we've actually probably never seen the best F1 drivers, because they probably never drove a car. And so I think the way technology will change it is the simulations will get so real that it will take the cost to train to become an F1 driver down to the point where the available pool of drivers is 100x what it is today, maybe 1,000x.
Yeah.
And so I think because of that, the drivers will get more important and the races will get more exciting, and it will completely change the race. But, from a perspective of, it'll also be easier to field a team. You'll need less people. You won't really need a wind tunnel. You won't need, but at the end of the day, will anyone want to watch autonomous cars drive around a track? I don't think so, because they'll all drive the same.
Yeah.
Now, I think it'll change the sports business and it'll change the talent pipelines, but I think people will still want to watch people play. I think generally, it's funny, people ask me a lot, what I'm investing in, with the whole AI thing. And it's always entertaining because I'm not an investor, I'm an entrepreneur. But I think that the safe category of things that you can put your money to work in are hard materials, hard money, and then entertainment. Because I think the demand for entertainment is going to go up pretty exponentially. And you can actually see that already. If you look at the value of the entertainment industry in 1900, it was tiny. And then we invented mechanized farming. And we went from, about 75 to 80% of the human population basically working full-time on feeding the human population to 7 to 8%. That was sort of the last big revolution of this scale that we've seen. And in that revolution, the value of the entertainment industry went up about somewhere around 1,000x over a 100-year period.
Yeah.
And I think that you'll probably, as we go through this next iteration, I think you'll probably see another several orders of magnitude exponential increase in the value of entertainment.
And if you look at all the entertainment landscape, sports, and I think music, they both have a similar thing in common, which is that it's the only entertainment that you need to consume live. So in a world where everything is consumed on demand, sports needs to be consumed live, and nothing is better than the experience of going to the stadium and enjoying that common sense with belonging with the fans.
Now, I will say that I actually think that the music industry, I think musicians are going to become less valuable. The reason that I think musicians will become less valuable and are already becoming less valuable is if you look in inflation-adjusted terms, they're making less money today than they used to. The reason is probably because it's become easier to be a musician. So there's more of them.
Yeah.
And so, nowadays, go back to the Beatles, there's no auto-tune for the Beatles. Like, you had to get up live on stage and deliver that. And it took insane talent and nerves of steel. Now, we have live auto-tuning, live patching. The productions have become as much about the show as they are about sort of the vocals, or, you can swap out the musicians. And what's interesting is a lot of the best paid musicians in the world today are actually DJs.
Yeah.
Who are not singing live at all, right?
Or playing an instrument live. Yeah.
Right. The person who's probably going to make the most money over the next decade in the music industry is a DJ. Probably either Tiesto or Black Coffee. And so, because the technology has made it easier to be a musician and has made it easier to be a musical entertainer, I think that that sector the sector will grow. I agree with you, but the individual value of being a musician is declining.
Okay, yeah, it's a very interesting view. Going back to the Cowboys partnership, the first thing, and this has been, I'd say, the traditional business model of the sport industry, that essentially has been transferring the attention and the audience to a third party, whether it was a sponsor or a broadcaster. So if you look at the business model, it basically lies on three big revenue sources: media rights, sponsorship, and events, merchandise, or commercial businesses. The media rights business model, it was essentially, the sport properties selling their rights and a third party that was a broadcaster talking directly to the fans. I think with technology, that business model has been challenged. Mm-hmm. So for tier one properties like the NFL or the NBA or Premier League, there's always going to be value over the media rights. But the media right business has been growing over the last 25 years. And now it's plateauing or decreasing for many properties. In sponsorships, it was a little bit the same. So brands were coming to sports because sports were putting together huge audiences, and they were coming just for the visibility. But today, as you mentioned before, it's not only the visibility, it's everything that you're able to build around it. So I'm curious to know, how are you activating your sponsorship with the Cowboys to make it more effective and drive your business goal, your ultimate business goals?
Yeah, we activate in two ways. One is that we do a lot of institutional and client events there. So we have a hospitality set up in the stadium and do a lot of hosting at the games. The other thing that we do is stadium activations. So we have folks that are doing stuff outside the stadium as well with sort of the fan base there. And then we work with some of the Cowboys players as well. So we do activations sort of across the whole stack. I, transparently am not the expert on activations or that sort of stuff. So it's hard for me to go into super detail on it. But we do have a team actually that's based in Dallas that's dedicated to activating that partnership.
Yeah, I saw some of the things that you did, and like, for example, the math book about the Cowboys, and it goes completely outside of what you could think a traditional sponsorship would look like. So I thought that was very interesting. How are you using your brand and the partnership to activate in different areas to try to reach new people? So it's very interesting to see the work that you're doing there, because it's not anymore what you said, just the brand visibility. It's also how that can drive your business goals. And when you look at this sort of partnership or the sports landscape, is there anything else that you say, or any industries that you see particularly interesting or opportunity to invest, especially thinking about your growth strategy or international expansion?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the F1.
You just said that the economics didn't work.
I love the F1. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I don't know what deal will be next. I think it'll be attached to a market entry, is my guess. And similar to the last one, I think that we look at a lot of these deals. It's probably a good time to be doing them right now, honestly. But we'll see. I don't know that there's anything imminent on the horizon, but I would imagine that it'll be to support a new market.
Yeah, and in terms of global expansion, I'm curious to know because people think about, when they think about blockchain crypto, people think immediately about the first developed countries, but actually blockchain and crypto can be enabled for all the people that doesn't have access to traditional banks or financial industry.
There's far more users of crypto products outside of the EU and US than there are in.
So what are the markets that are more where crypto has more potential for in your view, or the markets that you are prioritizing?
I don't really take a view on potential. I take a view on user numbers.
Yeah.
And so if you look at Nigeria, Argentina, Venezuela, Colombia, Turkey, the Philippines, they'll all have far more users than the EU. Each one will have more users than the EU.
Interesting.
Turkey will have an order of magnitude more users than the EU. Nigeria will have more users than the EU. Argentina will have more users than the EU. Brazil might now have more users than the EU. And I'm just using the EU because we're sitting in Europe. But all of those markets will be bigger by user count than the EU or the US, for that matter.
And for blockchain.com, are those markets a priority, or you're focusing more?
I mean, Nigeria is our fastest growing market right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow,
Nigeria is our fastest growing market. We'll open local operations in Brazil later this year, India later this year. We have local operations in Argentina. It's a very global business.
Well, I didn't thought. Well, in all those markets that you mentioned.
Yeah, I would say our consumer business is very much BRIC countries, which is just typical of crypto usage right now, and our institutional business is very U.S.
You're very U.S. focused.
Mm-hmm. U.S. and London.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't thought that the main user base was going to be in all those.
For sure. Actually, technology is usually adopted by those countries first now. So even if you look at VoIP messaging, so WhatsApp, so texting over a data protocol rather than a SMS protocol, it reached critical mass and popularity in the BRIC countries years before it did in the EU or US.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time. Well, I worked for Meta for over 6 years, so
cool.
I'm very aware of how WhatsApp was an enabler in countries like India.
Yeah, actually, if you look at the WhatsApp user growth journey, user growth story, which was mostly emerging market, and then eventually, and then Europe, and then just now America. Americans are still not using it. It's very similar to crypto. Yeah, you can almost map out. You can almost tack the two on top of each other.
Interesting. Well, in all those markets that you mentioned, so Brazil, Argentina, or Turkey, sports it's really a religion, but the sport landscape it's very different to what you see in the US. So when you approach Argentina or Brazil, there's nothing else than football or soccer, as you call it in the US.
Yeah, no, I think if we had to bet, our next sports thing that we do would be a football thing, a soccer football thing, not an NFL football thing.
Very good, very cool.
Which would be tough for me. I find that game very hard to watch.
Yeah,
I enjoy playing European football, soccer, more than I enjoy playing American football, even though I played American football. But I enjoy playing it, but watching it is very tough. Nothing happens.
Yeah,
it's very slow.
It's different.
I've been to a lot of Arsenal games. There's a lot of just sitting, waiting for anything to happen.
and nothing happens.
Nothing
So-
ever happens.
But sometimes nothing happens, but you have those 30 seconds where everything changes and the joy that you
No,
get
but I
from
think that those 30
seconds.
seconds only seem exciting because they were preceded by 2 hours of nothing.
No. If you have the
If
feeling
you
and the
put 30
connection to the
seconds
team,
of excitement of a European football game next to 30 seconds of excitement of an NFL game or a basketball game or F1 or even tennis, the European football would be the least interesting 30 seconds.
but if you think about it, it's the biggest sport in the world by
Which is
far.
really a mystery because it's so boring.
Well, I think it has to do with it's kind of natural to people. If you give a kid a ball, he naturally kicks it.
It's only popular because it has such a low barrier to being able to play it. And so
Yeah.
people associate it with because everyone plays, right? Like even Americans play. Like all you need is a little goal and
And a ball.
a ball. Like people
And
can
a goal,
play it.
and a goal can be
anything. It can be two shoes that you drop on the ground.
Exactly.
People play on the beach. They play on this. But I'm just saying, it's the best sport as a player, right? Because the barrier to entry is low. Anyone can play. Like it takes 2 minutes to explain the rules. That's out. You can construct a field with literally
I remember I was on vacation over New Year's and we built a soccer field on a beach, a football soccer field on a beach in 5 minutes with everyone's shoes. Yeah. Right. Like you cannot do that with any other sport. No. And so it's a great sport as a player. I'm just saying as a sport to watch professional athletes play, it is the most boring.
It's but yeah, the accessibility. I think it's one of the keys to make it such a big sport. We had in Madrid. I live in Madrid, and we had recently the NFL game in Madrid. We had the Dolphins against what's the team in Washington? The
Redskins. It's
no.
two of our worst teams.
Yeah, well, that's what you get, no?
Yeah.
It's very complicated. The NFL was doing a very smart strategy where they were creating videos to actually explain the rules because the rules are complicated.
Yeah, no, so it's interesting. I took some Brazilian friends to a Cowboys game, and they could not believe how much fun it was and how interesting the game was because stuff happens all the time.
Yeah.
And, they're hardcore soccer fans. Actually, one of the guys that went is a former professional soccer player. And so I think that, yeah, that's my hot, controversial opinion is that European football is boring. But, everybody plays, and that's why people want to watch.
Yeah, but now if you look at the European football, it has a lot of challenges also on the sponsorship and because you mentioned the in-stadium activations that you were doing. In American football, you have a lot of opportunities because you have a lot of things going on.
Look, and this has been the secret of success for the F1 and tennis, which are really, the F1 and tennis are really global sports, right? Like in a way that almost nothing, there's only really 3 global sports. Football, like European football, the F1, and tennis.
And cricket.
No, cricket's not.
Well, it's not global. Well,
cricket's not a global sport because cricket is not popular in the EU. Yeah, cricket is not popular in South America, and cricket is not popular in the US.
But it's the second most followed sport.
Correct, but there's not enough money in it because of where the followers are, right? The only truly global sports that are have real big fan bases on every continent are European football, F1, and tennis. And tennis is such a random one, but it's true.
Yeah.
Now, what is true about all 3 of those sports? What's true about 2 of those sports that's not true about the third, and why in F1 and tennis have dramatically gained share on football, on European football. Why? Because frankly, the fan experience and the sponsor experience is far superior. Far superior. Yeah. In a way that European football hasn't really figured out. The other thing is European football has never managed to come up with a truly global league. You have champions, this, that, but they're always changing, and you're never quite sure who's in it. And so it's more regionalized or localized than those other sports that are truly global phenomena. But it'll get there. But the biggest challenge I think for European football teams, and this is we looked at sponsoring different stuff and whatever, is they do not understand how to activate sponsorships, convert them to ROI, or frankly even it just doesn't. It's a different game. It's a different sort of setup than an F1 or a tennis deal or a European football deal.
Yeah, because sometimes when you are sitting inside or when you look inside of the football clubs, they have, in some cases, this, we could call it arrogance in a way, where they know they've been so popular and then they're so connected to their community that they think they are the center of the world sometimes. And it's like, why are you asking me when you are a partner of Real Madrid, of FC Barcelona?
But to be frank, this is
changing.
This is also why the leagues in Europe are so protective about who can play inside their leagues. Right. So if you let anybody join if you truly try to come up with a global football league, you'd have a team in New York, you'd have a team in LA, you'd have probably a team in Miami, you'd have a team in Rio, you'd have a team in Sao Paulo, you'd have a team in Buenos Aires, you'd have a team in Dubai, and you'd have a team in Saudi. And at least 2 or 3 of those teams would immediately become contenders to win the league because they would run them like businesses and their budgets would be astronomically higher.
Football is an interesting one because if you look at cases like PSG, where a huge amount of money has come in, there's still one thing that is not
PSG
just...
though isn't a huge amount of money. Neither is Real Madrid. Like if you put any of those things up to like an F1 budget or an NFL budget, it's pretty little.
Yeah, but I'm talking in terms of...
Yeah, but that's why they have to protect the league. That's why it has to only be European teams. You can't start new teams. You can't have expansion. That's why. Because if you said, okay, we're going to have expansion.
Yeah.
Like if someone wanted to start an NFL team in London or an NFL team in Madrid, the NFL would be like, sure, let's go. You would on the European football side, if someone wanted to start a team in New York and LA, would never.
No, you need the problem is that you need to start on the lowest tier division.
They're not even allowed to do that.
No, but
because by the way, the
from
New York
outside.
team or the LA team would work, and immediately as a player, you would immediately sign with New York or LA. Why? Because your sponsorship deals would be enormous as a player. You'd see the best players. If a team in New York or London started, or Miami or Sao Paulo even, you'd see 4 to 5 of the best players in Europe immediately defect to that team.
This is a very interesting idea because if you think about global football, and there's an obsession, every football club, they want to conquer the US. The US is the biggest market, the most interesting market for everyone. Everyone has been trying to go there. They've done summer tours. They're trying to now to bring official games there.
You don't want to root for Madrid if you're living in Miami. You want to root for like a Miami team that gets to play Madrid.
Yeah. Well, the FIFA now is trying to do that with the Club World Cup that was in the US. And I feel that, there's so much investment in football going into the US at the moment with the Club World Cup, this year the FIFA World Cup, that Messi went there, MLS is growing. But I think that if football doesn't crack the US market in 2026 with all the things that we're doing, I think it's going to be hard to find the same similar opportunity to crack it with this amount and level of investment though that is going now into the US.
Well, at the very least, it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be interesting next decade or two for sports. The people think okay, it's gotten extremely valuable. Is it a bubble? I think it's going to get more valuable, but at the same time, I think it's going to change dramatically.
Yeah.
And hopefully, crypto and blockchain technology can be a big part of that.
And are you thinking when you think about blockchain.com, are you thinking about developing products for sports, or how you think your products can help sport fans or the sport industry?
I mean, until a fan is ready until a club is ready to decentralize its ownership base, there isn't a lot for us to do. When someone's ready to do that, then I think it'll be very interesting. But I think that's probably still at least 5 years out.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah. They gotta really need to do it.
Time flies. So it's going to be soon. And just to finish up, I'd love to get your idea on or your thought in what's in your opinion, the biggest opportunity that the sport industry has with blockchain technology?
It's really to use like the efficiency and the fact that you can, have economic beneficiaries without intermediaries to to partner with your fans to create value. You can do something simple where you don't have to decentralize all the ownership of the club. You could go out and you could say, look, those 200 million Real Madrid fans, you guys now own 30% of Real Madrid. And we're just going to, everybody that can demonstrate that they've done X, Y, Z, we're going to give part of that 30% share. We're going to make you owners. You're going to be able to freely trade it. And let's all make this club more valuable together. This kind of goes back to what I said at the very beginning, which is economic orchestration. Like if you can go out and use crypto and blockchain technology to sort of organize a bunch of people for a collective economic outcome, you're going to have a better football club. You're going to have a more engaged fan base. You're going to have a higher revenue. You're going to have a higher equity value as a club, which will become a self-reinforcing loop. So I think that's the big opportunity for sports clubs globally.
That's interesting so interesting in an industry that right now is going through a transition moment in their business plan, because as I said before, the media rights, which was the main source of revenue, is kind of plateauing. Yeah. In some cases, in some leagues, is decreasing. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of movement in the space you're mentioning. I'm really looking forward to see how blockchain.com can enable that and the opportunities that can come up. So Peter, thank you so much for
appreciate it.
For this episode. It was a real pleasure, and I'll follow what you're doing with the Cowboys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.